I hate New York.
I hate my
I got
city.
home from New York and had a heart attack, so that does
Did you?
somewhat taint my opinion. I got sick and I got
Gotcha.
stressed, and apparently it aggravated a pre-existing condition. So now we know what's going on and it's all under control. It definitely tainted my opinion of New York a bit.
Yeah, I imagine that would taint your opinion. Pre-existing condition that you didn't know about, or you
Yep,
did know about? Oh, you did
I
know
did not
about.
know.
Well, now you know. Better
Now
knowing
I
than
know.
not knowing.
Better than only not knowing. Yep. And I'm just glad I made it back to Canada before it happened.
Yeah. Where are you at in Canada?
I'm in Ontario, Waterloo, smallish city near
Oh, okay. I've
New
heard of
York.
Waterloo. Why have I heard of Waterloo?
We're Silicon Valley North.
That's what it is. Oh, okay. Are you
Yeah.
an engineer?
No.
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 What do you? You're just an author, just a
I'm
fiction
just an
author,
author.
just a,
I'm just an author. Yeah.
and
I'm
it's fantasy, right? I'm trying to remember
science
your
fiction
cover.
and fantasy. Yeah.
Science fiction and fantasy. Which were you peddling at BookCon?
Science fiction, space opera.
Space opera. Okay.
I was peddling Exile mainly.
Okay. I mean, you did not like Book Expo, BookCon at all, or was just New
They
York
definitely
the?
had. There was definitely good stuff there. I
Yeah,
wasn't. It wasn't as successful for us as we hoped. I mean, I signed 500 books, so that
that's
wasn't too bad.
awesome. That's not bad,
But
right?
I find I am not a big city kid, so
Yeah, New York
New
is a big
York was a
city.
bit much for me.
I
And then
guess.
BookCon itself was very large and not really my side of things very as much as anything
Or
else.
do you consider yourself an indie or a traditionally published person?
I run an author-owned press.
Okay, so that would be more indie, right? In terms of
I
modern
make
day
the
opinion.
distinction because it's a staff of 3 and I don't actually do anything except write books anymore.
Oh, that's fantastic. How long did it take you to get to that point?
I started publishing in 2013, and Jack took over the publisher last year. We brought Kate on last October, and we brought Naomi on this March.
And these
So
are these authors too, or are they
these are all
just supporting you?
staff.
Wow, they're just supporting your
Yeah.
work, or do you have other work in the publishing house now?
That is all me.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of authors are going in that direction now. You're not the first one that I've talked to
No.
who's been basically building a publishing empire around them. There was the one
I could
the,
think of
a
several off the top of
co-author.
my head.
What's that?
I could think
You
of
know them
several
all?
off the top of my head.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's an interesting idea because, I mean, one person thought that it gave them credibility in terms of sellability at like a Barnes and Nobles or something along those
That's our
lines,
hope. We're not there yet.
right? That's her hope too. She's really crossing her. I mean, I have an opportunity to talk to her tomorrow, so I'll find out more. But it's been a
Mhm.
little while since. How long? It's been 5 years, and you're still hoping.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
we don't
I mean, I
sell. We
guess you
sell
never.
lots of books. We just don't sell them in bookstores.
How often do you publish? How often do you finish writing a novel?
Targets every 6 to 8 weeks,
6 to 8 weeks of how? What's the length?
between 90 and 110,000 words. Some of them have been as high as 130. Some of them have been short of that 85. Like
And
I might
you're
have
writing
one that's down to 80.
wow, man, this is an incredible amount of effort that you put into this. I mean, I definitely am not writing 100,000 words every 10 weeks. You said every two and
Eight,
a half months,
a
eight
month and a
every
half.
2 months, month and a half. How do you accomplish that?
It's a full-time job.
You just sit at your computer all day long and just pound
Basically,
out 8 hours of just words, endless words. And what's your count? What's your aiming? What do you aim
I
for?
aim for 4 to 5,000 words a day.
Okay,
And
that's
that
a
usually
doable
takes
thing.
me between 4 and 6 hours.
And you have to have it mapped out, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're not trying to figure your way through it
No,
while you're
God,
writing.
no.
Yeah, that's
I
me.
generally get about, if I'm pantsing it, I get between 1,500 and 2,500 words a day.
Yeah, I'm about a
If I
thousand.
if I discover that my
Less.
outline sucks,
Yeah.
I end up only being able to get about 2,500 to 3,000 words a day. But when
An
I've got a good
outline.
outline, I can keep going.
Is that by pantsing? You're still in an outline, or you're still
If I'm
you're
pantsing is I didn't bother to
harvesting?
write an outline, and it
Oh,
always
okay,
is
okay.
always a bad idea.
And are you strictly a novelist, or you do short fiction too?
I do a little bit, but mostly novels.
Just novels, yeah.
Like I have a novella collection out, but it's mostly novels.
Novellas, that's really long short fiction. I mean, that's as long short fiction as you possibly. I don't consider novella short fiction at all.
That's as short as I get and still have it coherent.
Oh, I see. I love short fiction. Short fiction's my
50 to
thing. I mean, all the
25,000,
way down to like
about as short
50
as I
words.
get.
Whatever. Now 50,000 short for you?
Yeah,
Then
15 to
that's
25 is about as
15,
short as I can get.
15 to 25. Did you submit anything into the Tor
No,
open call? No,
I don't do trad publishing submissions
you don't even look at them at all. Why is that?
because they can't pay me enough for it to be worth my time.
So, I mean, that's the thing, though, isn't it? I mean, people talk about the indie publishing scheme. I want to say, I don't know if that's even an appropriate word, but I mean,
Schema
it
might
is
be a
though.
better word.
What's that?
Schema might be a better word. Doesn't have quite the same connotations.
It's a little bit more engineering focused, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say that you can, as long as you're doing the right things,
Yep.
and you're doing the right things. What do you think those things are?
Oh,
What
God.
bells are you ringing?
I'd say the big one is have a quality product. Like our books
Yeah.
have professional covers, they're professionally copy edited, professionally proofread, professionally formatted. And we put out a product that, as far as I'm concerned, is the equal to or higher quality than a lot of traditional publishing. And we do it every 6 to 8 weeks.
And you're writing a space opera. What's it about?
The one I'm writing right now,
Exile.
or
That's what, Exile is your space opera, right?
Exile,
Yeah,
it
and I will
was the
tell you
one
this, though, man.
we're
Your
promoting a book on.
title,
Yeah.
your cover is what drew me to you. I really enjoyed the I liked your cover a lot. Actually, it
I
is
love that
quite
cover.
professional. This is
That's
straight up
Tom Edwards. Tom Edwards
Tom
does
Edwards.
fantastic.
Okay. Tom Edwards is he a Waterloo guy as well?
No, he's in England, I believe.
England. Okay.
Yeah.
But Waterloo, I mean, you couldn't do this, right? I mean, if you were if you were born in the 60s and you were trying to publish novels in the 80s, this is not something that you could even remotely do. You
No,
couldn't put this together in Waterloo. I mean, this is you on the internet in 2020 being successful because you're able to use the technology that we
our
currently have
cover
available.
artists. Just thinking of our contractors, our cover artists and such. We have a cover artist in England, a cover artist in
Yeah.
Mexico, and a cover artist in Malaysia.
And they work on their own series or just whatever you have
They
for
each
them.
have their own projects. So they're all contractors, so they're done on piecework basis. So we contract specific series with specific authors. So Tom does the Exiles book series and the Duchy of Terra series. Shen Fei does most of my urban fantasy, and Jeff Brown does the science fiction that Tom doesn't do. And
So tell me a little bit about you. Where are you from originally? Like
everywhere.
from a kid, from you're just from the space dust that floats into our atmosphere and basically collected into
I
Glenn
have
Stewart, and
lived.
now, so man, you're the universe telling us stories. We need to be paying more attention. I think. What the hell's going on?
Um, when I say I'm from everywhere, I've basically lived pretty much everywhere English speaking except Australia and the United States.
Australia would be nice, except everything seems to want to kill you down there.
We have grizzly bears.
They have saltwater crocodiles, man. I don't know. They might win. Grizzly bears do scare the shit out of me, though. Ontario has grizzly bears? I guess you would have to. You're right up there next to the tundra or
I
whatever.
think you'd have to be pretty far north in Ontario to have
Yeah,
grizzly bears. Here, I'm probably more in danger from, I don't know, the mosquitoes.
the mosquitoes. So, I mean, where does your inspiration come from? I mean, why have this kind of drive? I mean, I do write novels. I understand what goes into it. It's not easy. I mean, you
Too
can't,
many ideas.
many ideas.
I
What was the
literally
first?
have my writing time scheduled out through about the middle of 2020.
Okay, that's
And I
interesting.
keep having new story ideas pop up. And it's like, I guess you're going in 2021.
That's very interesting. So, I mean, you take 8 weeks to write a first draft. That's not where it stops. What's
That's
next?
about where it stops. Yeah.
You publish your first drafts?
I write a draft in 6 to 8 weeks. I go over it once. It goes to a copy editor. I go over it from his edits. It goes to a proofreader and a beta team. I go over their comments, and then it goes out.
Well, yeah, okay, that's pretty normal then.
But I don't
That's a
do a
great process.
rewrite or anything like that. I only do the lightest of read throughs before it goes to the copy editor.
But you're writing it though. So I mean, you're going back in it and rewriting it as you're working, probably,
Not
right? I mean,
really.
you're not really. You're just, I mean,
I
that
start at the beginning and write at the end.
fluid. Where does the fluidity come from with you? I mean, are you
30
a
novels.
30 novels? It just wrote at this point. You've gone beyond the 10,000 hours, man. Right? Is that the
It's
point?
like 30 novel. I have got somewhere in the region of 3 million published words.
Whoa.
So yeah, it's not really. It is what it is at this point. It's what I do.
Right?
I sit
How,
down
how
and I write a novel from beginning to end.
how long have you been writing? And when was the first story that you produced? Do you
The
remember it?
first story that I vaguely recall would have been about grade 4, grade 5, so it would have been about 9, and it was something involving ice skating mice with machine guns. I literally
Okay.
don't remember anything beyond that.
I want you to dig it out and send it to me. I want to read it right now. I want that story to read. You go. That's incredible. So
It was
that
like
that might.
3 pages in a cashier notebook and traumatized my teacher because it was very violent for a 9-year-old.
And then from there, what? I mean, did you always want to be a writer, or did you just get
Uh,
sidetracked into this?
I was an accountant for 10 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was a senior financial analyst in real estate in a horizontal developer and a condo developer both in downtown Calgary.
So I mean, so you're a mathematician then. I mean, that's a tough way to go in terms of flipping it around to become an artist, right? Or do you even consider yourself an artist?
I don't really
Or
consider
you
myself an artist.
no, do you
I
consider yourself
consider
more
myself
of
an
an
author.
accountant, an author?
I
Is an
definitely consider
artist
myself
though. I
an
mean, people
author.
argue that they can be. I can argue that you could be an artist. Where do you come up with
I
these
wouldn't.
ideas from? You're not
I don't really
copying
disagree
them.
with it. It's one of those things. I wouldn't disagree with describing me as an artist, but at the same token, I wouldn't self-describe as an artist, if that makes sense. It doesn't. My
What about your
mental
product?
image of myself is an artist.
Would you consider your product art?
I don't know. I guess.
Would your people reading it consider it art? Because I honestly, I mean, the photographer doesn't consider their photo; they consider their subject, don't they? And at
Yeah.
the end of the day, when they're producing the photo, the real work's already done. They can't go back and take that same picture again because it's probably been months or days or hours or whatever. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's over. It's history. So I mean, they consider it done. Somebody looks at it at a museum, just to take it in for the first time and experience it, they have to consider it art. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
Yeah. I never
wonder,
really
do
thought
your
about it.
readers think of you as an artist?
Probably. I never really thought about it, I have to admit. I think of myself as an author or a writer. I think of it as, for whatever reason, I have a split in my head between art and writing.
My wife is the same way. Honestly, I argued with her till I was blue in the face. No, it's art. It's art.
It's not art, it's
No,
pulp fiction.
and that too, though, right? I mean, sometimes I do argue with myself as I'm writing whether or not it's pulp fiction. And what the hell is this that I'm doing? Am I calling into something higher to this form of creativity, or is there something? I'm not, seriously, I'm thinking to myself as I'm pounding away on stupid dialogue, going, "What am I actually doing?" You know what
I
I
am an
mean?
entertainer. I write to entertain. I write pulp action SF, and I don't pretend otherwise.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? An entertainer. I mean, did you always want to entertain? Because I mean, that's
I
annoying,
always
isn't
wanted
it?
to tell stories.
Tell stories is entertaining around the campfire back in the day, cavemen and all that stuff, right? That's where it originates. So, I mean, entertaining, it's hard to get to that point where you decide that I'm just going to entertain people. And that's where
Yeah.
the derision from the artist comes from, I imagine, because
Mm-hmm.
artists don't entertain, do they?
No.
They just do.
Well, it depends on the artist.
What's that?
Depends on the artist.
Depends on the artist. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. Can you think of somebody that's an artist
Taika
that
Waititi.
wants to entertain?
Taika
I can't.
Waititi,
I don't know who that.
director of
Taika is that
Thor
director of
Ragnarok.
Thor Ragnarok? That was a great movie, actually. I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking of Robin Williams, as in the
Yeah.
comedic artistry type situation. Sad guy. Yeah, man. Why would you consider him? I've only seen that one film though, the Ragnarok
Thor
movie.
Ragnarok was really worked for me in a sense that a lot of comedy that's done it. A lot of movie comedies don't work for me, but
Yeah,
Thor Ragnarok really, really did.
I will admit it's a fantastic movie,
Brilliant
and
piece of work.
I think I was excited going into it to begin with. I mean, they really did a good job with the marketing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they had that '80s thing going on perfectly, and
Oh,
the tone was perfect. I mean, that they did a really good job.
yeah. Ragnarok
And
is a masterpiece of a movie, in my
I
opinion. They
really
did
do
an
think so too.
incredible
They did a
job.
great job. And that's on top of the first two Thor movies, right? That didn't do
Yeah.
good at all for me. I don't like them. I don't
They're
enjoy them
they're
as
okay.
You say okay, and I couldn't tell you right now what happened. I know the first one, Thor loses his hammer, and he meets Princess Amedea, and they hook up, I think, and he has a cup of coffee at one point, and he likes it. Right? That's the movie in terms of how I saw it. And the
Yeah.
second movie, I think, takes place in a cartoon. I think, like Mary Poppins, they jump into a cartoon world and they like shake hands. I might have fallen asleep. I have no clue about the second one at all. I know I tried to watch it, was not thrilled with the experience at all. It's interesting, isn't it? Because the MCU, they've gone a lot of directions. They have good movies, they
They
have
have.
really crappy movies, but everybody just
They've
gives them
generally,
credit for the good ones.
I don't know. I'd say that I would. There aren't actually. One of the things I find most impressive about the MCU is they've definitely churned out some mediocre pieces, but I
Yeah,
wouldn't say
okay.
that any of them are truly terrible.
Well,
It's
you're
like the
Canadian. You have to be polite. I mean, you can't be rude to anybody or anything. So I don't know which one I would consider terrible, honestly. I mean, I really enjoyed Iron Man 3 and 2. I thought they were both fine movies and didn't really understand the complaint.
yeah.
In terms of, I hate the mirror fighting at the end. The bad guy that's exactly the same as the good guy, and they
Mhm.
clash. I think that's a little boring, and I wish the movies get a little better. I mean, the first two acts are great. The third act is like, who cares? I mean, he's gonna
Yeah.
win. He's a superhero.
And like I said, they have a formula, and they produce pretty consistent quality. Some of them are much better than others, but they all meet kind of a minimum standard of entertaining, and making Disney piles of money.
Piles of money, yeah, that's definitely what they're doing, man. And it doesn't
And I
seem like
can't
they
argue
can do
much
any
about
wrong.
entertaining that makes piles of money. That's basically my objective.
Well, so I think that's what we do, right? I mean, at the end of the day, everybody has a picture of Stephen King on their wall, aiming for $500 million by the time they die or whatever. I mean, you have
Nice.
successful people in your field. What is it?
That would be nice.
Right? Wouldn't it? I mean, he still writes though too. So I mean, obviously the drive to create doesn't go away with success,
God, no.
right? I mean, do you ever wish that it could go away? They could just relax and not get up in the morning and write 5,000 words that day?
Maybe, but then I wouldn't get my stories out.
So, I mean,
And
do you have a story that's inside of you that wants to get out so desperately that you just can't seem to get to that perfection?
no, they
No.
just keep coming. I write one story idea, and here comes three more. I write two of those, and here comes five more. I write three of those, and here comes 10 more. This is
Well, that's interesting. Where do they come from within the story? Characters, their individual arcs, or the world
like
itself?
everywhere. Like, I don't even know. I mean, story ideas are just a thing that happen.
Right? I mean, that's exactly the way it works. A little thing that happens, a word you
Like,
put down,
people
and
ask,
then
where
six
do you get
months
your
later, you're
story
like, oh,
ideas? I'm like, I have no idea. I have a fertile field of plot bunnies, and I can't
interesting.
get them to stop.
Well, you read, right? Obviously, you read.
Yes.
Everybody
I
who
read.
writes reads. What do
I
you
play
read?
video games. That's
And
basically it.
oh, you just play video games? Are
I
you one of
read.
those?
Mhm.
Are you one of
Sorry.
those dudes that clicks past the text too? Like you get to a quest and it has this long block of freaking words that you don't have to read because it doesn't really affect your gameplay if you do. All you have to do is hit continue. And then if you get stuck, you open
I
your
would not
journal
be
and
one of
just
the
like,
guys who just hits pass. No.
no, why? Are you the dude that just reads every single word when you
Yeah,
play?
basically.
Yeah, I'm playing Pillars of Eternity right now, and I swear to Christ, these people talk way too much. They need to stop, and there are not enough dungeons. Really, what kind of games do you like?
I found I didn't like the gameplay for Pillars of Eternity for
Did
whatever
you
reason.
um did you like Baldur's Gate? Did you ever play that
I
back in
played
the day?
Baldur's Gate and I couldn't get in, and I suppose it should have been a warning sign for me that I couldn't get into Baldur's Gate, and then
Yeah,
Pillars of
because
Eternity came along.
this is
So
straight up, man. This tickles
yeah.
every single thing I need from Baldur's Gate. I love this so much. I mean, I want to give them all of my money. I asked my wife, can we make them our next of kin? She says, no, we have children. I really like it a lot. I put like 300 hours into the first game, and I still am not ready to buy the next one.
Wow. Yeah, I think I put about 5 hours into Pillars of Eternity before I got bored.
What's your cup of tea?
A lot of things, usually RPGs.
Okay. I
RPGs, some grand strategy, some 4X, some action games. I have a
What's a
group of
4X?
guys. Civilization, Master of Orion,
Oh my God, yeah.
that group.
Civilization's the best.
Civilization is murder on your time.
Yeah.
Master of Orion clones are the reason why I have a timer on my phone.
No, wait, you said another word, and I didn't quite hear you. What'd you say? The second one? Master and Commander? No, you didn't
Master of
say it.
Orion.
I've never heard of that.
What Master of Orion was the big space grand strategy game for a while. Everything's still trying to live up to it.
Maybe I did play it. I think Sid Meier did a version of this. Wow,
He
this looks
did
really
Alpha
freaking awesome,
Centauri,
actually.
which was something different, which was more civilization on an alien world. And
This kind of looks like Solaris to me.
Stellaris is an evolution of the same concept. Yeah.
I think I have played this actually. It does play similar to that, doesn't it? Where you kind of have your
Yeah.
solar system and you expand
Yep.
outward.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stellaris is how you say it? I
Yep.
really enjoyed that. I get boxed in though, and it doesn't seem like you can war with the other civilizations in that game and not get your ass kicked at any point in time.
I find
It's a very
Stellaris is interesting because the AI is weirdly crippled. So if you can get past a certain point, you will. The rest of the 200 hours of the game is just cleaning up, but you have to survive the first like 100 years of the game, and
Oh
after
yeah,
that,
I like that part. That part's fun. It's like all the expansions and the exploring systems, and they have the science fiction tropes kind of popping up here and
yep.
there, and it's interesting, right? I mean, that's kind of where I get a lot of my inspiration from too, is playing anything, just living life, right?
Yeah,
Just soaking it all in.
exactly.
I mean, just unfortunately, we live in the future. Every single day, there's something new that pops up that I want to write about
Yeah.
or add
Sorry.
into a story or something like those. What's that?
Sorry, I'm just sending an email
Oh,
on my other screen.
distracted podcasting is illegal in New York City. So you didn't like New York City.
New York City was just too much for a small town boy.
What was it exactly? Was it the noise, the traffic, the fact that you could get evil looks just by standing someplace?
All of the above. The gunfire was definitely
Gunfire. Where the hell did you stay? What
Hotel
happened?
Pennsylvania.
Huh? Oh, the
Hotel
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
There was
Which,
gunfire?
yeah, there was gunfire 2 nights of the week we were there.
Interesting. What happened? Did you find out?
I have no idea. I just assumed it was New York.
No,
Gunfire is
usually
not a regular occurrence in New York. The movies
we
have
get
lied to me.
we get about a murder a day, I think, something along those lines. By the end of the year, it's about 400, 500 murders, but they usually don't take place in Midtown.
Yeah, no, there was at least 2 different sets of gunfire
I know
when I was
exactly
in
where
New
you
York.
stayed. Madison Square Garden, you were right across the street.
Yep.
That's a disgusting area. That is a horrible place. That's one of the worst
That
places in the city.
I learned. So
Huh?
I learned.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of I got to see it because it's famous, right? Madison Square Garden's there. There's tons of stuff. Shopping's unbelievable, but it's a magnet for everybody in the entire world to come there and just be assholes. I
I
don't
found that
understand.
actually it was surprisingly not so coming from Canada to New York, and New York having the reputation it has, I was surprised by how polite New York was.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Polite
Did
New
you
Yorkers. I
like
found they were polite, they were helpful. I mean,
living in Madison?
there were a few people being rude and drunk and obnoxious, but in the main, people were as polite and helpful as I would have expected from anywhere in the world.
Yeah, we have our assholes. Just the unfortunate thing in terms of percentages, we have a higher number of assholes because of the percentages. You know what I mean? Our
Well,
population's
there's
so high.
also like so many people in New York. God. But hey, the mouse in the room was adorable. That's about the only
Oh my
thing I can
god,
say about Hotel Pennsylvania.
that's interesting. That thing is so old, man. I worked at the Maury Povich show that was filmed there in one of their
Mhm.
little gigantic ballrooms. I don't know if it still is or not, but yeah, it was a piece of shit. I mean, it was a horrible place.
So we learned the
But
hard
hey,
way.
you still paid like $400 a night though, or something ungodly expensive like
Something
that.
like that, yeah. We
Yeah,
established that Hotel Pennsylvania has 3 selling points: location, location, and location.
yeah, exactly. And that's everything in New York too. I mean, you will buy our place in Riverdale in the Bronx was basically a hole in the wall, and you paid like 4 figures to live there because you lived in New York. You know,
Yeah.
you had German cockroaches running all over the place. You couldn't get rid of them to save your life. Every 15 minutes there was a door slamming. I mean, you're in your apartment trying to find peace, and there's doors slamming all over the place. and you just pay a premium to have
I
life
live
suck.
on top of a hill in a suburb in a very nice little city that has a lot of tech, so a lot of science fiction nerds, which works for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you have a lot of people to hang out with and discuss concepts and stuff like that.
In theory, in practice, I don't leave my house, but yeah.
There you go. You're an introvert. You're a writer. Why not? You can
Exaggerate
fantasize
slightly.
about all that stuff. So, I mean, what comes out of Waterloo that I should be aware of? Is that where they made BlackBerry? Is that why I'm
Yes.
thinking? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up? I was
BlackBerry
just
came
talking
out
about
of Waterloo.
BlackBerry yesterday. Research
BlackBerry
in
came out of
motion.
Waterloo. Now Intel operates out of here. Google's
Oh.
Canadian office is here. Half the robotics in North America are here. The other half's in Silicon Valley.
Ah, you get the space arm then. That's another thing I remember
Yeah,
potentially coming
I'm
out of
not quite sure
Canada, Ontario.
where that one was designed. Basically, there are as many tech workers in the corridor between Toronto and Waterloo as there are in Silicon Valley,
Why not, right? I mean,
and our house prices aren't quite as bad yet.
the thing about Canada that I really like is that it seems like the government wants you to be creative, wants you to do stuff, wants you to get together with other people and make things.
Some days.
So, I guess I don't know. I was in Montreal and I saw a bunch of community things like come play music communally or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Seemed
yeah.
very
We've got some some pretty good community groups for stuff like that. My brother actually runs a community theater group in Calgary.
Oh, that's cool. He can do that as a profession.
No, it's his hobby.
Oh, okay.
It's his,
So things aren't that much different, but he can't have hobbies like that. That's crazy. I couldn't imagine having a hobby like that. Wouldn't even know how to begin. I guess we do have community theater around here.
uh, Start at the bottom, work your way up. Say yes
I'm
when they desperately plead for someone to run for president.
right. That is an excellent suggestion. That is exactly how you get anywhere when you're 18 years old.
Yep.
You know what I did instead was say no to everybody, piss them off, and get into lots of fights. And now I'm 41, married, and living in a basement, trying to write novels. So I think I basically dug my rut. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
stuck. And
Yeah,
I
it
think
wasn't.
you are too, right? I mean, you bust your butt doing what you got to do.
I love my life. I can't say otherwise.
I mean, what did it for you? What tell me about the moment that you went from this isn't going to work, I'm so stupid, why am I doing this, to god damn it, that worked. What the fuck?
um, my now wife kicked me into taking the stuff that I had sitting around my hard drive and self-publishing it.
Just self-publishing and never sending
Yeah.
it in. So you never got that approval from Big
So
Daddy corporate.
I did a series of 5 novellas. What's now the Starship's Mage novel was written as 5 novellas that were put out one every 3 months for a year. And the first couple of those vanished into the ether almost unnoticed. But by the time I launched episode 5 and the omnibus, the sales from that paid our first down payment.
But you're one of those guys though, right? You hit that bell right when it needed to be rung.
I hit the right
2013
time.
was
I hit the right time with the right product. There are people who I don't necessarily buy this, but I get given a lot of credence for the rebirth of space fantasy as a genre, at least among indies.
it's interesting
Which I
because yeah, I've talked to a lot of indie authors and very few of them say I write space opera. In fact,
yeah.
I would doubt,
Well,
a
space
lot of people don't
opera,
know what space opera
space
is.
fantasy is the big one that people tend to say point to Starship's Mage and go, "This was the first one of this generation," which is kind of cool if terrifying.
Space opera. What about that movie with the space station that's developed in the atmosphere into this gigantic world? It starts with a V. Did a really
Oh,
crappy job with the
Valerian.
movie. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's a space opera, isn't it? I mean, you
Yep.
have the trope, the big gigantic mothership
Yeah.
and various species or whatever, however that works.
Yep. Space opera is a surprisingly healthy genre these days, but it's mostly driven by indie authors, I find.
Nobody's producing space operas in traditional that you can think of.
There's a
What about
few,
Scalzi?
yeah, I was about to say there's Scalzi and there's Weber. How I don't know how the group here it's Weber, but I think he might actually be Weber. I'm not 100% sure there.
I've never read him. I'm only
Drake does
aware of
some space
Scalzi.
opera. That's David Drake. Eric Flint has a side series that he puts out a book every few years in. That's space opera. There's a couple of other names of those. And of course, there's Catherine Assero's space opera, which is literally Eurovision in space that I desperately need to read just because the concept is amazing.
Eurovision in space.
Yes, so the book is literally called Space Opera. And it's a space opera about opera in space.
Eurovision. I'm trying to imagine what that would be. So I'm now have to Google it.
Eurovision is the big music competition in Europe.
Oh, okay.
So once a year, all the nations in Europe, some of them have their little internal competitions to pick their act, but they all send an act with one song to a series of basically massive concerts, and they select the best, basically pop songs. They're all always pop. The best song out of these 40-odd performances, and they're the winner of Eurovision for the year. It's a big deal in Europe.
That came right up. It's interesting. I've never heard of it before. So space opera is the funniest science fiction novel this person has ever read on The Verge.
Like I haven't read it yet. I keep meaning to. I adore the concept so much that I need to read this book.
I mean, comedy and science fiction's hardcore, right? I mean, Douglas Adams, Terry Pratchett. I guess John Scalzi's Red Shirts kind of hinted at comedy, but it was morbid as F. I mean, it's hard to do, right? I know people who try it.
I'm not a comedic writer. People say that there is a level. I am told there is a level of dryly sarcastic, snarky humor that laced through all of my stuff, and I just go, okay, sure. I don't write this to be comedic. That is just the voice I happen to bring to things, I guess.
Well, I mean, to go into that, because that's an interesting topic, is you're human, right? Trying to capture humans or humanoid type species on
usually
paper,
humans.
and
I have various aliens floating around. My viewpoint characters are almost always human.
It has to be humor. Has to be, because you can't have tension for hundreds of thousands of words. You have to have something to relieve that.
There's some humor in there, but it's not. I get the feeling that people find more humor in my writing than I put in there. So I don't know.
I've had authors say that as a writer, what your job is to guide your reader in kind of this meditative state that they go into when they're enjoying a book. I mean,
readers
it's really
will take away from a book what they take away from a book. No readers interpretation is wrong.
Exactly. I mean, you are.
They may not take out of the book what I put into it. They may not take out of the book what I wanted them to take out of it. But that doesn't make their interaction with the book wrong. That was their interaction with the book.
That's very interesting.
If they hated it, I hope they stop reading my stuff and don't leave 1-star reviews on everything.
Right. Oh, is that what happened? But that's got to be frustrating.
I had one reader who read everything I released and 1-starred it all. In some cases, within 24 hours of release. So he was buying it on release, reading it, and leaving a 1-star review.
What was his main contention with you?
Oh, that I was just basically a hack pulp SF writer, which I'm like, yes. And
I don't deny it. He says, "What do you want from me?"
I'm a hack pulp SF writer. I need a hack.
But there's nothing wrong with that, though, because it's not like you're vomiting on paper and then submitting it to Amazon. You're putting quality work out there. I mean, that's my question, right? When I'm sitting in front of my computer and I'm punching out dialogue, am I producing art, or do I need to be striving for more? And your answer to that is, no, I'm doing what I need to do.
Yeah. I write to entertain. There are themes in my work. There are messages in my work. I get accused of being an SJW, and they're not wrong.
Social
not really.
Justice warrior.
But
I don't know. I hear Canada's like hardcore social justice warrioring all over the place nowadays. With like, don't you have like? There's the. I don't know. I'm not from Canada. I hear things. It's weird. It's weird things. What do you think about it in terms of? Is it up there like the gender thing?
I don't even know what you mean by the gender things.
It's so weird. In my everyday life, I don't hear anything about this until I turn on the Joe Rogan podcast, and it's all over the place. Do you listen to other podcasts?
No, I don't actually know which podcast you're referring to.
Joe Rogan is that dude from that sitcom back in the 90s, played the janitor, News Radio.
No idea.
Oh, you don't know News Radio?
Nope.
It's got a Canadian at the helm of that show, Dave Foley.
I don't watch TV. I have never watched TV except for like Star Trek and Stargate.
You excited about Patrick Stewart?
Yes.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping
Jean-Luc
that
Picard is my captain. The age I'm at, Jean-Luc Picard is my captain. I
well,
grew up with Jean-Luc Picard as the captain of the Enterprise.
oh, you grew up that way. I
Yeah.
did too, I guess. But unfortunately, I have a little crush on William Shatner. Always will. It's his movies, man. That's how I grew up. That was when I was a
He's an
kid in the
asshole.
80s watching. Yeah, totally. He blocked me on Twitter. He blocked me. I'm a dude that loves what's his name, William Shatner, and he blocked me on Twitter because I made some kind of rocket joke to him, and it upset him, and he blocked me. But I do have the pleasure of saying I'm blocked by William Shatner, which I think has its own little, braggability, right?
Yeah. It gives you
But
some
yeah, he's an
credence because,
asshole. He's a
William
total
Shatner's an asshole.
He's an asshole. He's from Waterloo, isn't he? Something like that.
I have no idea.
I don't know. He's from Canada.
It's
Yeah,
a
I've heard
very
that.
large country.
I don't know. I've never. No, I have. I've been to Toronto and all the other fun places. Montreal's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoy. What is that called over there? Ontario. Hey, that's where you are.
Yes.
Um,
I'm in Ontario these days.
What do you think in terms of what your contemporaries are doing? Is the state of science fiction strong, or is it slowly shrinking?
Well, I mean, it's definitely not shrinking. God, like if you actually look, if
Yeah.
you look at some of the numbers that include the indie market, as opposed to ignoring everything that doesn't have an ISBN. Data Guy ran.
Okay, that's so fascinating.
So
Ignore the
Data
indie
Guy
market.
ran some numbers that he presented to the SFWA, and I believe you can find them at authorearnings.com.
Okay.
And Data Guy's methodology is iffy. I'm not 100% sure on its value in terms of, I wouldn't trust it to be giving me exact details, but in terms of giving you the general trend of the market and what's being missed, it has a massive amount of value there. And the basic thing that he concluded was even excluding the indie market, if you factor in ebooks and audiobooks, science fiction is doing better than it ever has. Once you factor in the indies and so forth that just don't show up on the traditional reports on it, science fiction sales have doubled since 2008.
Because when you look at the news, they say science fiction doesn't do well.
Yeah,
because they don't calculate that indie
exactly.
buy-in.
Like you look at Christopher Natal, Nick Webb, me, Michael Anderle. There are people selling hundreds of thousands of science fiction ebooks, and it's not a short list of names. Like I can name I just named half a dozen off the top of my head, and I know I'm forgetting at least as many as I'm naming.
Can you say that you could do it now? The same thing? Start today, 2018. Can you still get the same kind of momentum that you developed in 2013? Is that same environment still out there?
It would be harder now, I think. Not least because there are already that dozen names who are selling.
Yeah, because there's Glynn Stewart out there stealing readers.
There are a dozen of us out here who sell 100 to 200,000 novels a year minimum.
And do you think there's room for other people or no?
I think there is. I think there's room for. I think there are some very large gaps in the market still. One of the ones that I took brutal advantage of was the lack of female-led space opera.
Yeah, I've been listening to that lately.
That was actually a discussion I had with. I call it an argument, and Chris Fox argues with me that it wasn't an argument; it was a discussion. He's probably right. We were talking about his analysis of the market was that none of the books had a female lead, so he didn't want to write a book with a female lead. I looked at it and said that to me sounds like a giant gap in the market, so I wrote a series of books with a female lead that have done very, very well for me. The trick to that, as far as I'm concerned, is I'm not a woman. And I really love to see more female-led action SF that's written by women out there, because that's a voice I don't have. The Own Voices movement has a very strong point with that sort of thing, and I think it's something that we don't see enough of in science fiction. And I think we have part of it is the audience for military SF and space opera in particular is very white and male. But I think
that's my genre.
In that area have been very white and male. So we have excluded a very large potential audience who doesn't feel that this genre is written for them at all. And I think that reaching out to that audience, which is one of the things I do try to do, is an untapped market where someone could still sell hundreds of thousands of science fiction ebooks despite being an unknown. I think there is a lot of space out there for new voices. I think it is a lot harder to get the visibility than it used to be. It's a lot harder to make that jump from nothing. It's always been a matter of standing out there in copper armor, yelling, "The gods are crazy," and trying to get hit by lightning.
Yeah.
There's a lot less lightning out there right now, but there are still ways to do it. I can tell you that the way I did it wouldn't work now, but I'm sure there are ways you could do it, but not least because I see at least 3 new names break into the top 10 of space opera a year.
Yeah, it's interesting. Where do those names come from, right? I mean, that
Oh,
I think that a lot of even the publishers now are hybrid. I think Tor.com is a hybrid publisher, if that's even a thing, where they throw a lot, I'm making things up.
yeah,
They throw their novellas online now. They just say, here, there's a bunch of novellas, buy whichever one you want.
yeah.
They're kind of copying what the indie movement has done for the last 5 or however
Yeah.
many years.
I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned both ways. I know a lot of the biggest hurdle that the larger indies are having right now is we're all trying to get into bookstores and they're just not talking to us.
They
Like
refuse, yeah.
there's no there's just it's a market that despite our best efforts so far remains closed to us. And I think company the company that chooses to be the bridge there, that understands both the traditional distribution and the indie world and steps in and makes that bridge between the top tier indie authors and the bookstores, is going to make a freaking killing.
In 2006, 2007, I worked for, oh God, it was a vanity publisher. It was really this horrible guy. If you look
Mm-hmm.
back into my interviews, I actually got him on the podcast. It was one of the only ones that I had to cut off like real early because I just could not stand talking to him anymore. It was really, really brutal. But he was a vanity publisher, meaning that, they take the author's
Mm-hmm.
money and they say, we're
Yep.
going to spend it this way. And I got to sit on a phone and I got to call every single Barnes and Noble bookstore, library in the Chicago area and basically
Mm-hmm.
beg them to take these books in. And some of
Yep.
them did. But I mean, it took all day for weeks to
Yep.
get them to consider it. Tracking down people, trying to beat the crap out of gatekeepers. I mean, it was
And
impressive.
it's not worth. We put a bunch of effort into that this year, but where we're at is it's not worth the ROI. There is no ROI on it for us. We could take that time for our staff and put it into promoting ebooks, and we will make 10 times the money.
Yeah. Also, brick and mortar's going away, isn't it? I mean, they might still
Nah,
be there for a cup of coffee to browse through some
nah.
stuff, which we really, no, you don't think so? I don't think so either because it's a place to
I
hang
think
out.
Barnes and Noble is screwed.
You
To
think they're
be
going
clear,
away?
I think Barnes and Noble is screwed. The evidence I've seen is that the independent bookstore, which offers a completely different experience than Amazon,
Yeah.
is only getting stronger.
I don't know, man. I know that if you go to New York City and you walk down the streets, what you won't see are independent bookstores because they all closed 3 or 4 years ago.
So
And
this is the
the
problem that
reason
we're
they
running
closed
into is,
though
of
is
course. Mm-hmm.
real estate. I mean, it's the real estate market. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah.
like the economy is just sucking. I mean, I've heard this one wonderful quote. Real estate is the only thing that never devalues. It always increases. Rent never goes down. It always goes up. I mean, you buy
That's
a book for
not
$19.99. It's always going to be $19.99, but your fucking rent's $2,000 more this month than it was last month because your lease ended. So bye bookstore. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Well, I used to work in real estate. It is not true that real estate never devalues.
Well,
It
the
is
government might
so
make it
not true.
zero. I don't know. You
It's
poison the
just that
land or
when real
something.
estate devalues, it's usually part of the entire economy coming down in flames. So,
Well, that's true. I mean, I guess you could buy at one point the Thunderdome in Detroit or whatever the hell that Silverdome or whatever for like $100,000.
yeah,
I mean, I'm pretty sure they spent millions building it. You could buy it for like $100,000.
yeah. But what you see right now, and I mean, it's not so true in New York just because New York rent is what New York rent is. But what you're seeing is the independent bookstore where it's not I walk in and I browse the shelves and I grab a book and I leave. It's I walk in and I talk to the staff and the staff go, okay, you like this and this. Well, I can recommend you this, this, and this that I think you would like. You can't get that from Barnes and Noble.
No, they won't talk to you. You try to talk to a person there, and they're like, "Dude, didn't graduate high school. I'm like the cheapest person they could have hired."
Yeah.
I work
And that's
34.5 hours. I don't have health insurance. I'm basically a manic depressive, and I'm going to walk into that fucking office and murder my boss right now. Watch. I mean, that's Barnes and Noble.
and that's the problem. So Barnes and Noble, the biggest issue that you see is right now you have two types of differentiation that you can do in bookstores. You can have selection and price, where you can't fight Amazon. You
Can't
just
fight Amazon.
cannot
Amazon
fight
makes the
Amazon
price. You go into
on
a bookstore, you take a
selection.
picture of a cover, and you look for it on Amazon for the better deal. I mean, that's how I shop in bookstores nowadays.
Yeah, they hate you.
Yeah, they hate me.
They hate. But what you do, what the independent bookstores have that Barnes and Noble doesn't have is they get to know their customers and they have that intimate knowledge of they know their authors, they know their stock, they know what they're carrying,
Yeah,
and so they know their stock super well. And if you're one of their regulars, they know you super well, so they can connect the two and they can tell you what you want.
yeah. I mean, you go
Amazon
down.
does some of that, but people
Yeah.
get creeped out when an algorithm does that, and they're kind
Oh.
of charmed and warm fuzzied when a human does that for
Well, I've heard that Amazon ads do very well because people trust
them.
Amazon suggestions, that people
I've listened
look
to
for
them,
more
yes.
things. Yeah, you look, oh, you want to read books like this? Check out this dude.
Yep.
And hopefully it works.
And
I mean, Amazon refuses to, besmirch their product or whatever, destroy their name. I mean, they will not allow things to be bad, right? They remove
yeah,
reviews. They tell people to go screw
no, they don't.
themselves all the time.
No, they don't.
But they
No, they
don't
don't.
remove reviews?
Amazon is terrible at removing reviews that are
Ugh,
problematic, allowing crap, allowing scams.
ugh. Well, yeah,
Amazon's
that's the rumor, though. I
atrocious.
thought they were tightening their whatever their ropes on that,
Yes,
tightening
but there's only
the
so much
sales on them.
tightening you can do
Yeah,
when they're tightening on one end and saying, "Oh, come in, come in, come in," on the other side.
yeah. Everybody,
Like they
everybody can
are,
publish. Everybody can novelist. That's why Barnes and Noble doesn't want to open that floodgate, even for
yep.
you or anybody, because they don't want the dude who has
And they have their
no.
own they have their own print, self-publishing print and digital arm at Barnes and Noble. It's atrocious what they have at.
Yeah, I don't know
I've never
corporate
used their
America.
print service. Apparently, if you're on their print service, there you can anyone can special order the book into Barnes and Noble. But the way we're set up, anyone can walk into a Barnes and Noble and special order a Glynn Stewart book.
So you could go through Barnes and Noble. You just have to publish specifically through them.
We even then they wouldn't put it on bookshelves. So we're as in. So if you walked into Barnes and Noble right now and said you wanted to order a copy of Exile by Glynn Stewart, they could do it for you.
And you would get whatever you get, and you'd
And
be
I'd get
happy.
whatever
But
I get. Yeah.
I would have to know specifically that Glynn Stewart's what I want. I can't shop by cover. I
Yeah.
can't do anything like that. I can't just impulsively buy it. I have to know
No, you'd have to
100%.
go in and special order it, and that's literally as good as we can get it.
Yeah.
Like you can go into any bookstore in North America at least, and probably in Europe as well at this point, and say I want to order a X book by Glynn Stewart, but you have to know that book exists.
Now, you're in the indie bookstores up in Waterloo and the Toronto area and what have you, right?
Well, they can order the books, and I don't think I'm actually in any of them right now.
No
Or
indies in the area, no indie bookstores in
oh, there are.
Canada. Have
I'm
you?
talking with one
Okay.
of them right now about having the. Well, you saw the spaceship we had at New York.
I missed that actually. It wasn't. Oh, I did see it. I was.
Yeah,
That's why I'm talking to you right now. The
yeah.
spaceship, and I talked to your
So
lovely wife too. She was there. The
yeah,
both of you, right?
that's
Yeah.
nice. So Jack is the actual CEO and publisher for Phelan's Pen.
Oh yeah, I did talk to you. That was impressive. And you brought that all the. No wonder you had a freaking heart attack. I mean, God, the
I'll
thing
blame
was
hauling that
amazing.
through the streets of the FedEx office. Yeah, sure.
Oh man,
But
forget about it. That's horrible. You had to walk. Did you walk or take a cab from Pennsylvania to?
we took a cab from. I walked a couple of times. Took a cab most of the time. We had to walk the spaceship from Pennsylvania to the FedEx office, which sucked
Did
because
you
we
have any
basically
protection?
cabbies refused to even pick it up.
Yeah, man, that's incredible. Now, just to picture it, the sidewalk's never empty. There's always people.
Nope.
It's everybody's bustling. Nobody gives a shit. They will bump into you. There are people there that deliberately aim, and you're carrying this delicate
We had
thing.
it in a plastic case that could literally hold a body.
Oh, so,
Like
okay. So my
so, all
my
told, it
imagining
was
it
this.
being
It was
I'm
this
I'm
four
like
foot.
imagining it being exposed and like jiggling
No,
around and pieces
no,
falling
we had
off
a
of it.
4 foot black plastic tote that we were hauling through the streets.
That's more acceptable. People probably thought it was just a dead body. That happens all the time.
We had a couple people. We had people offer to help us carry it. People were super
So
polite and
cool.
helpful.
Yeah, that's really awesome. That's our
I,
city. I
I
mean,
might
this is
just
a
think
really
we
nice
were really
place.
sheer Canadianness because everyone was so nice and polite to us.
Or you bumped into a whole bunch of other Canadians. Like there was a convention of Canadians in
It's
Midtown, and
possible.
you just walk through
I
them
mean,
like.
someone also called my wife a redneck bitch, but as far as things go, as far as New York's reputation go, it was great.
Yeah, that's why I love it here, man. You never know what you're going to expect. You get on a train, is it going to be a cool train with a whole bunch of people that just want to be by themselves, or is it going to be that one homeless dude that's sprawled out in the middle of the car? Basically, he has pissed himself already. He's got other fluid around his head that's dripping down and dancing as the car is moving between stations. It smells because he shit himself, and you're
You're
stuck
not
with him
selling me on
because
New York here.
no, I don't care. There's 24 million people here, man. We don't want you. Stay where you are. Please take some with you. Next time you come back, get like 10, 20 people, bring them to Waterloo with you and then make them live there.
I live in a region of just over 500,000 people. It's got all the amenities I would want, and I don't have to deal with traffic.
My wife is thoroughly addicted to this area. She refuses to leave. I'm like, babe, let's buy a farm someplace. Let's be like ranchers. And she's just like,
That is
no,
a
I need.
hard job.
Yeah, I know. We'd hire a bunch of people or something. I don't know how it works. The horses,
You should
horses
just
fend,
go
those
bank.
wild horses, they could fend for themselves. Cows,
To be
free
clear
range.
here, how it usually works, if you buy a farm and you have no idea what you're doing, is you go bankrupt.
Oh, well, that's not good then. I'm in a condo on the beach in Florida. Let's do something crazy like that.
That
I don't
sounds
know,
much
man.
nicer than a farm. Yeah.
I grew up in Florida. It's really not much nicer down there. Are you a Waterloo guy for the rest of your life, or do you have plans
Well,
on?
we own a house here, so we're working on we're planning. When we bought the house, I basically said we'd stay here for about 10 years. After that, we'll see. We've mostly moved around for my wife's health, so we may end up moving somewhere more equatorial for that still.
Oh wow, equatorial. That'd be good for you for taxes, wouldn't it? I mean, in terms of like
Yeah.
making money. You
Yep.
Howie lives on a boat.
I know. I hate him.
I
Don't
hate him
really.
too. I mean, I've watched some videos. That is the way I want to live my life. I mean, that is such a fantastic
One of my
thing.
cover artists moved to Mexico. Well, moved to an exurb of Mexico City, a satellite community that's up in the Mexican Highlands. That's
I've
apparently
heard
just
Mexico
full of
City is
expats and rich people.
horrible. Oh, really?
So it's a town that I can't remember the name of, but it's in the mountains above Mexico City. So you have access to all the Mexico City like art events
Amenities.
and everything.
Yeah.
But you're in this basically rich little suburb up in the mountains, gated community on a grand scale. Is my impression.
There's a place in Mexico called Pueblo, I think, like something like that. You can go 35 days on $100 in terms of groceries.
Mm-hmm.
You live forever, basically, on nothing. What is that?
Yes.
$1,200 a year is your grocery bill. That's it. That's all the food you want. And it's good, fresh Mexican food. Just don't drink the water.
Because like I said, I used to be an accountant, so it was always kind of the fun thing. When you're dealing with tens to hundreds of millions of other people's money, it loses meaning. And one of the things my boss always said was, remember, $1 million is enough for you to live on a beach in Hawaii for 10 years.
Which beach?
But basically, you're paying $100,000 a year, and you're living on a beach in Hawaii, basically. And it's like, yep, just for scale, when you're dealing with, millions upon millions of dollars, and when you're doing business accounting, the numbers it's really hard to stop the numbers just blurring together and becoming meaningless.
So I
Stop
mean,
them
you
becoming
went.
just
Did
numbers.
did, did you go to school for accounting
Yeah,
and
I'm a
landed in that
designated accountant.
profession? And still,
I can't get rid of it. It's complicated. But yes, I'm still a designated professional accountant.
so why accounting? What called to you about math
I
and
enjoyed
that
it.
field
I did it.
specifically?
I failed out of engineering, ended up in an clerical accounting job, enjoyed it enough to go back to school for it, basically.
I've heard that before. You start out wanting to be an engineer, and then you move to finance, and then you go down to accounting. It's like you want to be math so bad that you'll take the accounting job.
Well, I actually ended up going the other way. I went from engineering to accounting, and then moved into finance. Once I was actually, my degree is in accounting, but my work was mostly in finance.
Oh, I see. The reason I know that is my wife was engineering, and then she went to finance, and she stuck there. She said she would have gone to accounting, but finance was easy, I guess. I don't know, man. I'm not a math person. I got my degree in creative writing. I can barely, I don't know grammar either, which is weird. They gave me a degree in writing, and I don't know anything. So education system sucks. They just wanted your money. Half of my education was showing up, right? I mean, you show up and you get a grade.
Doesn't work quite so well for business school.
Yeah, exactly. You have to put forth effort and make
I had to do
good.
group presentations.
Oh yeah.
I hate group presentations. I still do them.
Education's done. You don't plan on going back to school for anything?
No, I have my letters, which are I'm a chartered professional accountant, so I basically have a postgraduate degree in accounting, and I am a science fiction author, and I own my own business. So
What is the next
why would I
stage
go
for
back
you?
to school?
I would go back to school. I would get a PhD so I could teach kids, right? I mean, in terms of being
I hate
successful,
teaching.
I don't know, man. Like you get vested or not vested. What's it called? You get what's the big
Tenure.
thing? And yeah, you get your tenure and you're good for the rest of your life. You can just sit there and just talk to pretty girls for the rest of your existence and tell them that you're a science fiction author, and they go, "I want to be one too. How do I get to do it?"
I'd rather
And
write.
then you can discover if you have morals. You'd rather write.
I'd rather keep writing. Too many ideas, too little time.
Yeah. So, what's coming up for you in terms of the future, writing projects? What can we expect?
So last thing we launched was Exile, which came out in July. Next thing out is Agents of Mars, which is a Starship's Mage book in September. October will be Darkness Beyond, which is a Duchy of Terra book, which I'm working on right now. November will be a co-authored book with Terry Mixon. I think that one is Bound by Honor. And then December will be another Starship's Mage book, Unarcana Stars.
Terry Mixon.
Yeah.
I knew a guy named Mixon once. This dude's not from Florida, is he?
Texas.
Oh, Texas. That dude's name was Todd Mixon. It's an interesting name because it just stands out. That one letter difference, you know what I mean? I wonder if they changed it just because of that one dude.
Who knows?
What does a release schedule look like for you? So, like, you finish the novel, you run it through its processes. I imagine that takes another couple of months, and then you get the art,
Usually,
put it
I've
together.
seen it. I've done it in as little as 3 weeks, which I think we did one release earlier this year in 2 weeks from completion to launch, which I don't think I ever want to do again at this point. We're pushing for 3 months between completion and release, so that we could try and get some blogger reviews and so forth. That'll be, if we get to that, that'll be new and somewhat weird for me, because I'm used to literally it being a month at most between completion and launch.
Why the slowdown? Your health?
Just trying to spread it out so that there is a longer gap, so I've got more room for health issues if that comes up, which I hope it never does again. But also just giving us the space to reach out to reviewers to try and prep things in advance, to have a bit more momentum in play when it hits the ground.
So no more New York.
No more New York. No.
That's
I will
horrible,
send
man.
people to New York for me in the
Oh,
future.
good. Let me know. I'll go back to BookCon and harass them. No, it was a good experience. I mean, it was smaller than I thought it was going to be. BookCon. I thought it was going to be a lot bigger. I
Book
was happy.
Expo is a lot bigger. They chop
Was it?
off about half of it closes when it turns over to being BookCon.
It was a last minute decision to go. I did hook up with a few authors and got to talk to them, and I really enjoyed talking to you as well. I like to finish the podcast with a couple questions, and just one of them being, what are you reading right now? But I think you said you don't read, and you've
I do.
given us tons and tons and tons of titles already. What are you reading?
I read. Right now I am reading. What the hell am I reading? Oh God, I think I'm working on Richard Tung's the third book in his Lincoln's War trilogy. I just started that.
Oh, I think I. It's not Lincoln and the Bordello, is it? No, that's a different
No,
book
it's a
altogether.
space opera series.
Oh, okay. Good though. Recommend it.
Oh, I enjoyed the first two. I haven't really made it far into the third one yet.
It's my problem right now is I can't get into a book to save my life. I'm constantly looking for one.
Yeah, and I most recently finished A History of China.
Oh, nonfiction?
Nonfiction, yeah. I'm trying to remember what the author was because I can never remember the author of this book. And he was a big deal in studying China. I'm just trying to see if I can bring that up on my Kindle here. If my phone would like to wake up.
What video games are you playing?
I am currently playing Nathan Lowell's Home Run. That was the last thing I finished.
Oh, that's one that I've heard about too, actually. That made a couple lists last year, I think.
Well, this Home Run is brand new, but Nathan Lowell is a known name.
Or
Yeah,
maybe it made
China: A New History
maybe it
by
made
John King Fairbank.
oh, gotcha. I think it made lists this year then. I've seen it. Home Run has been popping up on science fiction awards stuff.
Yeah. Nathan's good people. I recommend reading his Solar Clipper series, Tales of a Solar Clipper, something like that. The series that starts with Quarter Share. I really do recommend it to a lot of people because it's a master class in how to write conflict without violence.
Oh, interesting. I
Like
mean, you
I
don't need
write
violence for
military
conflict.
SF,
Yeah.
so stuff blows up a lot.
Yeah.
Nathan writes day in the life of someone on a merchant spaceship in the far future, and there's like I think 3 fist fights and a knife fight in 6 books, maybe 2
Yeah.
gunshots, but it's still engaging. There's still conflict. There's still everything that makes a book fantastic to read, but there's none of what I would regard as action as action, which I think makes them a fascinating read for anyone who's trying to work out, what do you do in fiction other than have a gunfight?
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting experience. You need to have somebody fight or do something violent. Yeah, you don't have to. There's lots of conflict out in the world,
Lots of different types of conflict.
or relationships or
Yep.
interactions, what have you. Yeah, it's interesting. Where can we find you on the World Wide Web? Where do you want people to go to find your interact with you?
GlynnStewart.com.
GlynnStewart.com. That's
Yep.
the home site, the home base for
Yep.
everything. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I mean, this has been a great conversation. You're a very animated guy, and I could definitely see you writing 100,000 words in 2 months based on the how well you can talk.
I keep doing it, so.